Welcome back to Promise Monkey Presents Cypher Crafter. We are in the middle of a move, as you may see, so please be
Disregard them.
patient as we are setting up our new studio, but we want to make sure we got videos out on time for everyone, so we're doing what we can do. Uh, I am Scott Robinson,
I'm Jen Ross.
And I'm Rustin Coons.
and we are your usual Promise Monkey Presents crew. Today we'll talk about crafting ciphers and specifically how to tailor ciphers for different settings. But first, let's go around the room and talk a little bit about what has inspired us in the last week. Uh, Last night, I watched the new Toxic Avenger movie with Peter Dinklage as the Toxic Avenger, and it had the Gonzo elements I kind of like in my role playing sessions, including a mop that was dripped in toxic sludge and became basically a magic item, and
Nice.
the tone of that was just kind of inspiring and a lot of fun. But what about you, Jen?
I'm not sure. I've been mostly thinking about my classes, so evaluation and disasters. Yay, Mexico earthquake and stuff like that. But I have been thinking a bit about what's the name? I cannot remember the name of the movie with Galaxy Quest.
Oh,
Thinking about Galaxy Quest and the fun with that, and also ruminating on Predator Badlands and the crossover with that and Alien.
and for Rustic.
Oh, well, the big thing that I just got that I'm super excited about is this 30th anniversary edition of Dragonlance Legends, which is the reissue of the classic Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman stories. I know these were incredibly influential to both of you when we were younger. And I know for me, these were just a seminal part of my fantasy fiction upbringing. They really that both of those trilogies, I think, just fundamentally altered like everything I thought about how like a D&D setting or a D&D group could run, and they were just hugely influential in how I think about party dynamics. I think about character conflict between party members, like inter-party conflict. When you especially when you start looking about how different characters have different intrinsic motivations, and how they can all be there and they can all be working on the same goal, but they can all be very different people in very different places in their lives. And I have not had a paperback copy of this because these have been out of print for so long that I have not had a physical copy in a while. I gave my the copies I had to my older son Thor when he went off to college, and well, he read them all in high school, but he has them now. So I'm extremely excited to have another copy here to share with my younger son. So for me, that's been, I think, the big, as far as media is concerned, or any sort of like art or anything like that. I think that's the big thing that I've got this week. Although I can't say I've reconsumed it yet. It did just show up, but I'm very excited about working through it again. Are you guys still there? Oh no, I think you've frozen.
We had a little bit of hiccup there.
Ah, there you are. Okay.
Our internet is being worked on as we speak. The If I recall correctly, I actually met Rustin and our mutual friend Scott because I was reading a Dragonlance book in before school one day in junior high in the late '80s.
I think you're correct about that, actually. I think that was the thing that made me go, hey, who's this? I don't know this guy, but he's got good taste in shit.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was either. I think it was my first day of school.
Yeah, I think it was actually. And I do actually remember this. Wow, that was so many decades ago at this point. But I do recall seeing you sitting there and being like, yo, like this is rad. So,
I've got to step out for a second so we can get the internet worked on real quick. Oh, let's see.
It's
Maybe.
all right. I can get to it.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Excellent.
we'll edit it out in
Please
post.
give me
We're not
guts.
going to edit it out in post.
No, no, no. This is the messiness of recording, and we're proud of it.
And
I
it
love.
was the other Scott that introduced me to Dragonlance.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
We should have
He's
you
been
on here
reluctant.
sometime. That would be fun.
I have two.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. Okay, so the way we thought we would proceed today is to randomly determine a cipher from from the new cipher rules, and then each of us will talk about how to um, create such a cipher as a manifest cipher. That is a cipher that has a physical form rather than a subtle cipher, which is sort of a not necessarily visible effect, more of a narrative effect. But we wanted to focus on the manifest ciphers so we can talk about how they would look different in a fantasy setting versus a uh,
Sci-fi.
sci-fi or anything else.
Now, for anyone who's not super familiar with the manifest ciphers, I would recommend Monty Cook has a nice short article about them over on his Substack, where he talks about how they are designed to be things that are larger and more impactful than subtle ciphers. They're still essentially one-use things, but they're also things that are designed to allow characters to do things they cannot do with their character skill set currently. A couple of the examples that he gives are in a space setting, for example, having your pilot be able to heal a wounded crew member. You know, they can't normally do that, but maybe they got some sort of like mobile med kit, and so they do that. So if you're so these are, you know, as Scott mentioned, considerably more obvious in their usage than a subtle cipher is, which is in the name too. So
Okay, so I've randomly determined our first cipher, and then we'll each introduce the setting that we're going to fit this into. Our first cipher is improved swimming. This is a cipher that gives you, I believe, two assets for a swimming check. Uh, Anyone want to take a first crack at it and introduce like what you're setting you're going to talk about, and then how you would integrate an improved swimming cipher into your setting?
sure.
My first thought when you said that was like the Phantom Menace and the little thing that
Yeah.
The rebreather,
that
yeah.
Anakin and Obi-Wan used. Yeah, the rebreather for enhanced swimming. Yeah. The first thing that popped in my head when you said that.
And I know for me, because you know the setting I was going to look at today was more of an espionage and James Bondy sort of setting, and in a very similar way, you know, you could say the rebreather, but another one that would be really useful, I think, that I remember would be the classic scuba wetsuit that somehow allows you to wear a tuxedo without it getting wet, so that you could scuba into an island. And then somehow magically climb out of the ocean, peel it off, and you're dry as a bone with a little carnation in your lapel. I always remember watching that James Bond movie and thinking, I don't know that it would be so dry. How is it so dry? You know, but
And neatly pressed.
yeah, neatly
Right.
pressed, like it just
Not wrinkled at all.
clearly not stuffed into a wetsuit somehow, right? So yeah, that's one that I would think of immediately. Would be, you know, the idea of that wetsuit.
And one thing I like about that example as well is that this game is very flexible. And so a literal reading might be this is just the swimming part and it's helping you swim. And you might think of like all those sort
Yeah,
of things that pull you along. But be flexible. And maybe its two assets aren't just to the swimming portion, but it's to the appearance check afterwards or something along those lines. You can kind
exactly.
of stretch that to fit it into your campaign. In my solo cipher campaign that I posted last week, for instance, one of my characters had a control temperature cipher and they got caught in a wildfire. Now, that controlled temperature is mostly supposed to be like you can go when it's out when it's really cold, sort of cipher. But I thought, you know, if it's a cloak and it's to control temperatures, hey, it makes a lot of sense in the story for them to be able to throw it over their colleague and duck, and so that the wildfire would pass over them and the cloak would protect them. It may
Makes
not
me think
be
of Quoth.
Yeah, it may not be the intent of the cipher. It may not be the most literal reading of the cipher, but it really fit in the story. Let the story decide the limits of the cipher. It doesn't mean you turn an improved swimming cipher into a healing cipher, but it might mean that the task of swimming is easier in respects of the physical activity, breathing, or
Appearance.
the appearance that you're
Yeah.
trying to maintain your tuxedo or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, I mean, again, it's
Um,
it's it's part of the infiltration aspect of things. You know, if you come out of the
yeah.
ocean looking soggy, or if you need another 15 minutes to change clothes, I mean, that's real. I mean, because that's always the thing I remember is he climbs out of the ocean, He unzips his swimsuit, he steps out of it, and he's just picture perfect looking, right? And he just
Right.
strolls so smoothly, like everything else he does, just right on into the ball, like he's been there the entire evening. So definitely an example of something and a way that it would, especially when you consider that oftentimes assets are used to reduce the difficulty on a task, right? You might think, well, this is going to be a really, impossible task for you to step out of the ocean and go straight into a cocktail party without anybody noticing that you weren't there, because so this is like a level 6, like subterfuge sort of skill check, right? But instead, because you have this particular cipher, it's going to go ahead and drop that down, a notch, and make that a substantially easier roll for you to make, because you've really kind of negated a lot of the negative side of you know of the transition. So yeah, it was a pretty good one, I thought.
Um, so give me just a moment. Okay, I'll get back. So and for my cipher, it will be I'm using a fantasy setting, and inspired by Rustin's pick, I'll use Dragonlance, but I'm thinking kind of generic high fantasy. And so I might create this as the Stone of the Selkie, and it'd be a small stone that when you maybe if you crush it, or you attach it to yourself or something along those lines, some ritual, then you take on aspects of a selkie, and so you get like your feet become more webbed and larger. You might get webbed fingers,
Nice.
and in this case, it would actually help you physically swim through especially hazardous underwater conditions and things like that.
Yeah. For to avoid copyright infringement, I'm going to suggest we call your fantasy setting a wyvern spear.
Wyvern sphere, yeah. Instead of dragon, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah, I get it.
Copyright.
Yeah.
I was thinking, it also made me think of like Polyjuice Potion
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
Harry Potter, or, and then I was thinking about, did you see the movie Sunshine?
Did I see the movie what?
Sunshine?
Yes, I did see the movie Sunshine. So.
I was I was thinking towards the end when he has to go into the coolant,
Hmm.
maybe something that doesn't enhance your swimming, but allows you to deal with very cold water or
Yeah,
something
and
like that.
that's another one that would be cool, would be if you were, say, like like in the sci-fi setting, like you're mentioning, you could have something that, say, allows you to withstand more atmospheric pressure.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that allows you, like, well, you got to go in here, but the fluids that we use for engine coolant in our starship, exert tremendous pressure on you, so you would get crushed by the force,
right.
because it's the fluid around our artificial gravity generator. So if you're going to go swimming around in there, you're going to get crushed like a fly unless you wear your special suit. So
I like that.
yeah, that would be good too.
That's clever. Or like the abyss where they're so deep under the water.
Oh yeah, yeah, same thing there. Now,
Exactly.
they had like breathable, like oxygenated fluids in that one, didn't they?
They did. They had the oxygenated fluids. That
Yeah,
was pretty cool
that was cool.
to
Like,
help them handle deeper pressures
well,
so without
yeah, that
hurting
was
their
what was cool
lungs.
about that, was it was both, they had one item there that basically solved both the breathing and the pressure issue. So I thought
Yeah,
that was a
that was
clever
pretty
piece of
clever.
writing.
This is a weird one. Near death experience.
Near death experience cipher.
Ooh, a near death experience cipher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I think in an
See what
espionage setting, this is clearly something you're using to fake your own death.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
That's necessary in espionage.
so possibly, and it could be either you or an intended victim, where maybe you've shot them with something, but it really is not like a fatal bullet wound, but there's some sort of a toxin that puts them into a state of system, suspended, almost suspended animation until they receive an antidote to wake them up.
I like that. The description for near death experience is, if you died within the last minute, you revive. Whatever energy, wound, or effect supposedly killed you is undone. You are hindered until you take a recovery. The number of moderate wounds you can take permanently decreases by 1. You can use it on an ally instead of yourself. So that's interesting. But I like your idea better
Well, I think for an
for
espionage
the
setting, it
icy
works pretty
thing
well.
for
I mean,
espionage,
yeah, for an
right?
espionage works well. How would you use that in a sci-fi setting, do you feel, Jen?
Well, thinking about Alien, we have those horrible xenomorphs going through and stabbing people with their tails and stuff like that. So you get impaled, but hey, maybe it just missed all the vital organs.
But
Yeah,
that'd
there
be
you
more of a
go.
subtle cipher.
Yeah, that is a more of a subtle cipher. This would be manifest. So maybe armor
Or the med pod.
or the med
Or
pod.
the med
The
pod.
med pod. I'm gonna go revive myself.
Yeah, it looked to me like from some of those movies that if you get in the med pod, it might fix you, but who knows what other damage it's doing because it did not look super reliable.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something where a movie where they've got technology where it just like instantly knits you back together. You know,
Yeah, this might be kind of like altered state where I'm gonna move my. Is that right? Not altered state, but altered carbon, where I'm gonna
yes,
go in and just
yeah,
move myself to a new, move my brain to a new body.
yeah. Now those are both psychedelic. You think you're a monkey movies, but very different.
Yeah, very different.
Very, very different. Altered state,
And
altered
your new
states and
body
everything.
is just a little bit worse, which is why there's the penalty for it.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminds me of the RPG Paranoia, where you
Oh yeah.
have, instead of hit points, you have clones.
Oh, see, there you go. There now that's an excellent way of doing a near death experience. It's like, oh well, you're just in a clone now. You know,
Yeah.
your cloned body is your manifest cipher. You've got one clone for when you die.
And I've got the easy side with fantasy. Resurrection effects are fairly common, though I would say maybe it is. I would play this more as a ritual than a
Ooh.
cipher, but maybe a cipher is a necessary part of the ritual. But the
A
scene from
tool.
Conan the Barbarian, when they raise Conan, and Mako has written all of the script all over his body, and it's
Ooh.
wrapped up, and that maybe it's the ink. Maybe it's an again like a magical stone or something
Could
like
be the
that that has
wrap
to be part of the
itself, you
ritual.
know?
The wrappings
Yeah.
itself,
Yeah, the
right?
wrapping
Maybe the
itself.
wrappings are from an exotic animal
You know, it could be
or an
the
exotic
idea that
plant.
you've got, you know, that the combination, like when put together, like, so we're going to give you the mystic wrap. Well, what is the mystic wrap? It's these things plus this ink plus my knowledge. And when you put them all together, you get the mystic wrap. And that's a thing into itself.
Yeah, and it could be that it is again something something physical that you can use to entreat some higher power, but the higher power it always has a cost.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like a
yeah.
And
focus for God. Right.
right, like like a holy symbol or a
Yeah.
relic of some kind that is that's the cipher itself. But then it introduces the role playing element, and I would actually add two costs. One is the physical cost that's written into the cipher that you have to lose one, is it moderate wound?
Yeah.
Yeah, lose one moderate wound, but I would add a second cost because it is an entreaty with some higher power. You owe them, and I do that not to punish the player more than it would otherwise. I do that because it would
Story hook.
introduce a new story hook
Well, again,
that could be a lot of
I don't
fun.
even think I'd consider that to be a player punishment. What you're doing is you're just adding
Yeah,
a plot element at this point.
Right.
You know,
right.
oh, future thorn in the future. You know, like there's a you know you've added a future plot twist, which is again something that Cypher's always been into. I mean, that's the core idea behind a GM intrusion is that you know
Mhm.
the GM has an opportunity there to really shake things up and add something new to the narrative. So yeah, like I like that idea a lot of introducing you know new potential future plot developments through the use of this thing.
I like that too.
Okay, so I had to step out for a moment. Have we gone through all three?
We
Oh
did
yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
that's
Oh,
all
so
three of us.
it's okay. So let's do maybe one more.
Yeah, spin the wheel again, Scott.
Number 20. Number 20 is an equipment cache.
Ooh, an equipment cache. Okay. So,
So
I mean, I think in an espionage setting, this is kind of the classic, you know, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an equipment cache. It's like, okay, well, now I'm in this room. This was a safe room. I managed to get here. And I have an equipment cache. So I'm going to go over to the bookcase. I'm going to pull the book. the bookshelf's going to slide open. I have, weapons available. I have surveillance equipment available. I have, perhaps disguises or currency available. I mean, and this is another one of those things where it's really up to the your game master to determine like how extensive this sort of situation
Right.
is. It could be everything because this could be anything from like, well, it's basically like a dead drop. You go there and it's the classic. There's a gun duct taped under the table. Okay,
Right.
there's a CB duct tape because it doesn't have to be a gun. It could be there's cash
Nope.
duct taped under the lamp, right? So now here's your hidden cache of literal cash that you can go then use to bribe people or buy your way out of the country or whatever you're looking to do. But it could be, something rather grandiose. It could be that, now you've got, access to, well, here's weapons, here's armor, here's currency, here's a fucking jetpack to fly off of this place, you know. And again, we were talking about this just like a little bit before we started broadcasting. And this, I think, it would be the Porsche 911 from Goldfinger because
Yeah.
now you've got it's a vehicle, it's got the swapping license plate, it's got the oil slicks for getting away. It is like a pretty substantial sort of cipher. So
I like it.
what do you think, Jen? How would you do
Jen?
this in a sci-fi setting?
In a sci-fi setting, this could be like you found that room under the bulkhead that you couldn't find, or the smuggler pouch or something like that that had some extra equipment to help you either, close the airlock or escape the alien or maybe even tools to fix the broken down ship.
Yeah, I like that. In particular, I like the idea that it's like, oh, hey, that modulator we've been needing to get the engine running better. Like we just haven't found it, but now we've got it.
Yeah.
So
Here's the extra coil we needed to plug in. Yeah, exactly.
my fusion coils. I need my
My
fusion
future.
coils.
Yes. I can I'm trying to think of an example in a movie, but do you have one?
In a science fiction movie, yeah, so like this could be, for example, like an equipment cache in a science fiction film. I'm thinking of like what's a classic science fiction film where they had something like this. I mean, you could say it was anything like including, say, okay, so in Aliens, right? The gun
Mhm.
turrets, the
Oh,
automated
there
gun
you go.
turrets they set up, right? Where they're
Yeah,
like,
that's
okay,
a pretty
well,
big deal.
well,
Yeah.
we don't know what we've got here, but we know we're just going to pop these out here. We found these, we're going to pop them out.
Got to take chances at this point, right?
Yeah, I got to take chances at this point. So, even though this is not exactly how we've been doing things, we're just going to pop this sucker out here. What else would be a good example of an equipment cache in a science fiction film? Um, so Doctor Who, right? In particular,
There we go.
the seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. I'm old.
Yeah.
That one, he had this real tendency to leave himself stuff from the future. Like he already knew how this was going to play out, so he would come back in time and he would leave himself something so that in the present it's really something he left himself in his personal timeline future, but he's traveled back in time to make sure it's there when he needed it, right?
I love that with the that gives it an extra kind of edge
Oh, it
having
did.
that
Yeah.
whole
So it'd be like, oh, I
yeah.
really need there to be a like when I really wish there was like something like a sonic screwdriver in this box over here. Oh, look, I opened it up and there it
Good
is.
thing.
Was
Good
this
thing I
here?
came back and
Well,
brought this.
in the future I'm going to have to remember to come back and put it here when I'm not looking, right? Which it was always a rather clever thing. And I don't think they did that a lot in the show, but if you read any of the novels from that period, that particular version, the Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who, he leaned on that pretty hard actually, because he was constantly going back and leaving himself like stuff. Now that I know what's going on in the future, I'm going to come back here and leave myself something to make this easier. Which was interesting because, as a dynamic, because you have to have tremendous faith in yourself to
Right.
come back and do this, which is
Absolutely.
yeah, which is always
Even if it's just a message like in don't blink or
yeah,
yeah.
like in Don't Blink. So yeah, there's another there's a more recent example of it actually is the 10th Doctor doing that in Don't Blink, where he's leaving
Yeah.
all of the
Clues.
recordings the clues for Sally Sparrow behind. So
Yeah, that's good. I had forgotten about the Sylvester McCoy tendency to do that.
Oh yeah, he did that, and then especially in the novels, he was just notorious for doing it in the novels. So,
He
but
was my dad's favorite because he had a pipe organ as a TARDIS at one point.
yes, he did. He did all sorts of fun stuff.
He did. He was weird.
Yeah.
And then I guess in a harder version, it would be just finding that extra crate or box and being like, "Oh, cool!
Yeah.
This is going to help us out of that horrible situation."
And it could be everything from like med packs to, oh, well, we're all wounded, but hey, we found a cache of, medical supplies, or we found
Right.
an extra cache of, whatever,
Or with
blasters
Alien, it
or
might be the stim kit that your pilot's addicted to.
yeah, it could be the stem kits that your pilot's my pilot is jonesing. I need you to get him some
I need
chemicals,
something
please.
from my pilot because
Yeah, he needs
they're
some
going to get
chemicals.
their fix one way or another, and I
Yep.
prefer not to die.
Yeah, we don't want to die here, so.
That should be the last of our interruptions.
And how
Okay,
would
That-
you
so
interpret
in the fantasy setting.
an equipment cache in a fantasy setting, Scott?
I thought of two ideas that both have sort of they go in different directions depending on the setting that the particulars of your setting. One is because I still have Conan on the brain. When Conan is running across the wastelands pursued by wolves, and he crawls up these rocks to try and keep away from them, and then he falls backwards into a cairn inside the rocks,
The tomb.
and there is his sword.
Yeah, the tomb itself. Yeah, the tomb where he gets his
The
two-handed
tomb
sword.
is so, and again, that also, it's not just a sword. It is really beginning an arc for Conan.
Yeah, a whole character arc for him.
And there's nothing wrong with a Cypher inspiring just that sort of thing. Like, oh well, now I'm going to have a character arc. I'm sorry, not a Cypher, an equipment cache or a piece of equipment created by a Cypher that creates a longer term consequence, even if the equipment itself may be temporary or whatever it may be. The other idea that kind of, again, it's similar but sends the story in a different direction is what if you accidentally tripped across a Thieves Guild cache? And first, there's a lot of equipment there that might be useful to you, but if you are found to have stolen it, then you have a new enemy.
Yeah.
And so, again, use these ciphers, just like intrusions or things like that, to add new dimensions to the story. And that was just two different types of dimensions you could add based on a relatively simple cipher of an equipment cache.
Yeah, one of those things that I really have always liked about Cypher is that it's fundamental to its design philosophy that the progression affects how the story takes twists and turns. Like as you're going through the story is not usually just a railroad. Like that you can have that you've already given the DM, or GM so much leeway that like, oh no, I rolled a 1. It should be a critical failure, but no, it's just a new opportunity for me to introduce plot elements, or to really wacky it up or make it more serious, or just depending upon the tone of your game, right? Because a GM intrusion can always be one of those things where the GM has decided to raise the stakes. But if you're in a more lighthearted play setting, it could just be adding some sort of like slapstick element to the whole encounter, and yeah, I think your example in particular, Scott, is really illuminative of that philosophy, because here you have like, oh well, you stumbled across an equipment cache, but it is now going to become a defining characteristic of this character from this point on. And it really has altered this character's trajectory a great deal. I mean, they were already all in an adventure arc, but they had the goals didn't really change. He's still trying to find the people that killed his family. He's still trying to do all the things he was already trying to do, but you really helped hammer that character into a new shape just by introducing what was essentially a random element,
Yeah,
which is
we
cool.
often think of ciphers as things that characters control, which is appropriate. It's an ability basically for the character. But this is also an example of where you might want to coordinate between the GM and the player and say like, "Oh, I have an idea for this. Do you mind if I propose this for the use of your cipher? Because it'll lead in the story direction."
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say like, use it whenever you want, and we'll make it up. But especially with these, if you want to have that broader effect on the story, that is going to require some trust and back and forth between the GM and the player to say like, you have this cipher, I absolutely want you to use it, But I have an idea for later in the session where it'll work into the story well. And if the player trusts the GM to do that, it really facilitates that play. But you don't want to overuse that. You don't want ciphers to become just walking intrusions the GM controls.
No, I mean
But
there's a
if you,
balance there. Yeah.
yeah, and that you just build that trust over time with your group. And when when people get used to, because this is something that you don't see in a lot of other games. This type of authorship from elements of your character, and especially the scope of like starting a new character arc or creating a new faction enemy or something along those lines. That is bigger than we usually think of. You could use the equipment caches again. You fall into this. You fall into the care and you find a sword. That's good. It helped him get rid of his the irons that he was running with. It helped him defend himself from the wolves, and that is a perfectly valid use of this cipher, a good one. But if you want to go for that bigger swing and say, "Oh no, we're going to start an entire new like arc for the story based on this," you can kind of say, "Can I have an idea for this. Do you trust me to implement it? And I think you're going to like it." And the GM is responsible for creating something the players will like, and the players are responsible for trusting that can happen. And depending on the group, you might even negotiate like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to use this to get you your equipment, but also to inspire this thieves guild war." You might even communicate that up front. It's like a spoiler, but you're co-creating the story. And that's again, at the heart of Cypher is the co-creation of the story, not just a GM telling a story.
Yeah. It's a collaborative
And you've
effort.
got absolutely, and so you need to interpret ciphers in that light as well.
Well, I know that we had said we were only going to do 3 of these, but I'm really having a good time. Can we do another one?
Are you good with the fourth?
Sure.
Spin the wheel,
Okay.
Scott.
84. Restrain. Let me read what restrain is. I mean, I have a guess. That's the other fun thing about ciphers. You can just go off the guess and you're probably going to be fine. Um, as an extra action, after a successful melee attack, make a might or speed roll against your foe. If you succeed, you restrain them, and the foe is unable to attack or move away from their current position. Oh, I know Jen loves this one. The foe can use their action to escape the restraints, but if you actively interfere, you can make an eased roll against them to restrain them for another round. Though you like this one. Do you want to take fantasy for this one?
Yeah,
I'll
this
take
is
sci-fi for this one.
very druidy, right? So I always love things like this where you have vines come out of the earth and wrap somebody up, or a tree grabs them, or something like that. So I always think of how a druid would use this and restrain someone using the earth as a tool.
So like maybe like a seed,
Mhm.
little seedling that you keep in your pouch, and then you after you've attacked somebody, you can throw it down and it'll restrain them like that.
That's
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, I'm reminded of something you mentioned in your inspiration. We watched Predator Badlands, which is really good, by the
It
way.
is really good.
Uh, there is a device that the predators use that they throw it to the ground. It's like a little, just a, I think it's like kind of like a grenade, and it creates this red shell that uh, restrains someone, pulls their arms back, locks them down on the ground in a kind of on their knees in a very vulnerable position.
Hmm.
And so that is a rather direct interpretation of the restraint, but I think it has that sci-fi flavor when you have this opaque red shell, and it looks like the technology that they're using, and it has exactly this effect.
And I think in a like in an espionage setting, what I would immediately think of is something akin to a like if you had a like a wrist launcher up your cuff, right? And you do your little wrist move, and it launches a tiny little bolo out, that
Nice.
expands out as it flies and like wraps the person's leg and causing them to trip and fall over, right? And then they can get out of it. I mean, again, it'll just take them a round to get out of it, but it does
Older.
restrain them temporarily there. And you could also even use that as say like there's any number of things. If you didn't like that for the flavor, you could change that to say a for example, maybe a tiny little micro trank dart that tranks them, right? But then they have to kind of exert their round to kind of shake off the effects of the tranking, or the tranquilizer. Um, yeah, because it's just a
Oh
temporary
yeah,
restraint; it's not long. I like that one too. That one
Yeah,
was
and it
fun.
wouldn't
So,
take them out of the fight entirely, but it would hinder them a lot. So it's
hmm
like a sedative.
yeah, yeah, just a hindrance of some sort. Could be a stun effect, you know, a tiny
Yes, oops,
taser,
start your neck.
little taser dart. Just tases them for
Yeah.
one round.
And then they're disoriented.
Yeah.
We don't usually narrate from the opponent side, but you could sort of narrate what it feels like from their perspective.
Oh
That
yeah.
the world is spinning,
Mhm.
and it's not knocking them unconscious. It's not doing a larger effect than is present in the description of the cipher.
No, just
But
one round
um,
of delay. Yeah.
yeah, and that's again straight out of movies. That's exactly it would
Mhm.
just shift POV for a moment as they go, ooh, then it switches back and the spy punches them or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of I can't remember which sci-fi thing I've seen this in, but just a little disc that you slip on somebody's skin and then they can't move or something like
Oh,
that.
well, in Iron Man,
Yeah.
Stain Tech
Oh,
has that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man actually with the bolo sort of.
Yeah.
It's kind of like spider webbing.
Yeah,
It is very similar to spider webbing. So,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
which is how you would do that. You know, something like a little web shooter is how you would do that in, say, a Super's setting, which isn't even a setting we're looking at today. But again, these ideas are applicable across genres pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the spider webbing from Spider-Man would be very easily converted into fantasy,
Hmm.
especially if you had like
Oh,
a spider villain, or a cipher that you found when you're in the spider cult, and then you would use it later or maybe on them if you're just being rude, uh, and the cipher
if they were
itself.
spider people, they had it coming.
Yes, that's fair. You never see hero coded spider people.
No, you did not.
And in that case, let's see what might it be. It's after a successful melee attack. It could still be like a grenade of some kind, a small grenade or a rune, might fit really well with the flavor of a spider cult. And then and you would just slap that onto somebody after your melee attack, and it would from that would explode a series of these web tendrils that then wrap them all up like a cocoon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That feels like something from Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
It does actually feel very much like something from Samurai Jack.
And in case you were worried, we did not have an earthquake in Phoenix a few minutes ago. Just this little beast was crawling behind the screen and trying to escape. So he shook our camera for a little bit, but you can see he's happy now.
Oh, is that
Well,
happy
he is a
cat?
little engine of chaos.
Yeah.
Well, was there
Any final?
was there anything else you wanted to discuss about Manifest Ciphers today?
Just maybe some general tips on ciphers, some things that we've learned from playing and having the opportunity to play with some of the MCG crew. Even taught us a lot about how to GM the game, and one of those is ciphers should come and go quickly. And it is really hard. I admit, every game I play, I struggle to convince players to use their ciphers. Often because, in fact, the more powerful the cipher, the harder it is to get them to use it because they keep wanting to save it for the next, for what may be coming, what may be bigger and scarier. So you want to, again, coming back to trust with your group. They need to trust that if they use it, it can be replaced by something,
Yeah.
and then they can keep churning through. That is hard to do, and it's hard to remember in the moment. Um, and I still struggle with it, but I think that struggle is important. It's something the system is one of the great parts of the system is because then every character can hypothetically do anything.
Yeah.
And every cipher slot is basically an ability slot for your character. And if you're not churning through ciphers, that's basically your character losing two abilities.
Yeah.
Good
And
way
you
of
know, this
looking
is
at it.
this is just generally good advice. I mean, I know that one of the big things that I always found with people, especially when we were running con games, is that people were oftentimes, if they were new to Cypher, they weren't real clear on how at what rate should they be utilizing the resources of their character.
Right.
Certainly in the older version of Cypher, it was spending the skill points, right? You know, you tell
Right.
people
You have
that,
to do that
oh,
if
this
you're
is
gonna get hurt.
yeah, people were like, well, this is my health. I don't want to use it. I want to sit on this. And then you'd wind up having people having a really hard time, I think, accomplishing tasks because the system is really designed around the idea that you're supposed to be expending these resources and then recovering them. And ciphers are the same way. You're supposed to be using these things and getting more of them later, ideally.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Had to move to distract the cat.
That's the thing about getting new internet, right? I'm just happy we're still broadcasting today. Like that's just, even if it's a little more technically challenging today because of your internet situation, I'm just glad we're still doing it. And I don't think the
Which
audience
now would
is.
actually work. We missed it by about an hour.
Oh no! But hey, that's okay. That just means next week we'll be ready to go.
Next week
Yes.
will be good. Yeah.
Excellent. Yep. Any other advice for ciphers?
I mean,
Go
I
ahead,
think it's always good to make them funny. They don't always have to be
Yeah.
funny, but it's occasionally good to have, try to, I think creativity, like, but again, what kind of terrible advice is that? Be creative. No, but like, what does that mean more specifically? Like, I think, be unusual, right?
Be
Make
unusual.
them not just mundane things, make
And
them
here's
make,
where,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, that's where the tone stuff comes in. So
Yeah.
what kind of tone are your players looking for? You might have a much sillier cipher in a Galaxy Quest than an Alien,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So and while yeah, be creative isn't the best direct advice. I think what we could do best is what we tried to do today, which is to illustrate how brainstorming can work,
Yeah.
and to show the process of improvisationally creating these ciphers. Because I just rolled on the table. We
I
did
mean,
not know what
we
ciphers.
didn't rehearse any of this, so.
No. We had talked about what settings we might cover, but we hadn't talked about what ciphers we would do. So
Yeah.
we were trying to illustrate exactly what you should do in the game, which is a roll happens and like, okay, now what do I do to fit this in? With ciphers, it should happen often enough that you don't want to say, I need a bathroom break so I can figure this out.
Right.
But you just want to be able to riff and think about within your setting how might this particular effect manifest in a way that will be memorable for the players because they'll some of these manifest ciphers are things that they will remember. Like I remember in a spy game that I played many years ago on stream, um, my spy character had a portable motorcycle, and I
Portable
still remember.
motorcycle.
Yeah, I still remember when I was in this. I think it was an oil derrick or some sort of like base, and we had to get somewhere quick. I was like, oh, I have just the job. I whipped out my briefcase and just scooted around the facility with my portable motorcycle that came out of a briefcase.
That's a
And in fact, I
lovely
had it
mental
kind of
image.
transforming. The briefcase transformed into like wheels popped out, the top turned, and so it was basically a motorcycle briefcase.
That's
I
fantastic.
still remember that years later, even though it was just a random cipher in a random game. But those moments of inspiration are powerful.
I was thinking about when we played Strahd. Scott skinned Curse of Strahd for Cypher, so that we could play it in the Cypher system, and that was really fun. But there was a cipher that was a glue, and at one point we had saved a relic and we're returning it to the church, and we were trying to keep the relic in its place, and so we used the glue cipher. But how do we skin that appropriately? So as a druid, I made it pine resin and kind of sealed it down with kind of earthy smells, and so that it was just a weird flavor thing, but it sticks in my brain because it was kind of fun to do something different.
And those are the moments we strive for. And we hope that this has helped you create memorable moments in your games. That's why we're here. But thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back next week with more Cypher creations from Promise Monkey Presents. Hopefully, the cat won't do anything too crazy in the meantime.
That's fine. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.